Hey, so today has been another windy day, so nothing really outside got accomplished. The girls decided they wanted to get in the pool, and so we drug the pool out and everything, and it's not a super big pool, pretty small actually, but got it out and I was like, oh, really needs to be cleaned from last fall. So we started cleaning that, and then the wind picked up again, and we it became like a, I don't know, it was gonna drag us around the neighborhood, so we opted against that. So I actually got ready today, so this is what I look like on a normal day, like when I'm dressed and ready for life and things like that. And had a couple of work appointments, so I'm like, and I'm at a Coke. I'm a Coke Zero fanatic, and I ran out and I couldn't drive anywhere because my, car is holding the vent shut till we get a non-windy day where we can fix it. So I was like, I know, I'm gonna make some sweet tea. So I made some, my cute little cup here, but I lost my recipe. So I have the first house Cole and I lived in, we had the cutest little neighbor, next door neighbor, sweet lady from the South, and she, the first time I really had ever had sweet tea was she made it, and we were over there for something and she's like, oh, you guys need some tea. So she gave me a recipe, and it's like something that I'm trying to get this lined up here, something that I love absolutely, and it's like a handwritten, and this has been years and years ago, way before we had kids, in fact 2 houses ago. Our first house, we had this teeny tiny house, and it was 800 square feet, and that's after they'd added on like 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. So before that it was just like super tiny. But that's actually where we first got into, gardening. That's where I had my chickens, and we had this awesome neighbor. So I'll just tell you quite a few stories about that, but she had handwritten me this sweet tea recipe, and today I was like, oh yeah, I'm so gonna make that. And so I went and I looked everywhere for it. Haven't made it in a really long time, so I of course couldn't find it. So this is like round 2 after I looked some up on Pinterest, and they just weren't the same. They weren't as good. Way too sweet. The first one I took a sip and I was like, holy cow, can't even drink that. So I mixed up some more tea, and just isn't doing it justice. So Carolyn, if you see this, call me. They loved our chickens too. I'll tell some crazy chicken stories, but the saddest one ever was, it was Mother's Day, and we had a mountain lion that would come down through this drainage canal, and we could smell it. We'd seen tracks from it. A lot of people had pictures of it, things like that. Our dogs would freak out in the house, but they wouldn't go outside. So we knew, I hadn't actually seen it in the yard, but a couple different times, chickens would come up missing, or you just see a whole bunch of feathers. I had 40 chickens, but when I ordered those 40 chickens, I also ordered some meat birds, and I was like, I'm homesteading, I'm doing this thing. So I ordered these meat birds, and they're bred to get big, really fast, so that you can eat them. And I ordered 3 of them, and when the box came, one of them had already died, which is rare. I don't see that a lot. I mean, with other chicks, all the other chicks that I ordered, I never had an issue with, but these meat birds, one was dead, and then the other one just didn't make it after just a few days. So I was down to 1 meat bird, and he got big really fast, and he was fluffy and white, and he was like a dog. So I could go out in the yard and I'd whistle, and I mean, people seriously thought I was like a crazy chicken lady. Like, my chickens would go across the street to the park, and I'd whistle and they'd all come running, and I had this chicken herding stick, and all these crazy chicken things. But so Chunky Chicken is what I named him, and you're supposed to eat them between 9 and 13 weeks. And so, but he was like a puppy, I would go out and sit in the yard, he'd hop in my lap, I'd sit in the hammock, he'd come and get in the hammock with me. So when it came time, I couldn't kill him, and eat him. But because they are bred just to get really big really fast, he had a lot of health problems. So he put on these huge chicken breasts, and in order to support his weight, like his legs kind of turned in, and so he would kind of walk with his legs sideways, not very fast, and then he would tire out, and he kind of sounded like a pug. He'd be like it's not how a chicken's supposed to sound, but I love Chunky Chicken. And, you know, Cole kept telling me, like, he's unhealthy, he's not having a happy life because he couldn't keep up. And so whenever I put, you know, fresh stuff out for them, he wouldn't get, you know, first choice or anything. So, but he was like a dog. I'd pick him up and hold him and pet him and stuff. So one year for Mother's Day, the year that we had the chickens, we are at Cole's brother's. He was about half an hour away from where we lived at the time, and my cute neighbor Caroline called Cole, and she's like, you guys have got to come home. And he's like, why, what's going on, what happened? And she's like, that mountain lion got Chunky Chicken. And you know, I was making the dinner, so it's not like we could just drop everything and leave. And he's like, well, you know, like, is he suffering? And Cole told her to, you know, it got him in the back of his neck, and then they let their dog out and kind of chased it off or whatever, and they'd put him in a box. And Cole's like, oh my gosh, don't leave him there to suffer. And she's like, I love him so much, he can't do it. We tried to get her to, you know, have her husband just make sure he wasn't suffering, and they were like, we're just gonna put him on the back of Cole's work truck, and we're waiting for you guys to come home. So we hurry and, you know, finish up dinner. We go back to the house, we pull into the driveway, and there's this little USPS priority box. Well, it wasn't little, you know, good size one, sitting on the back of his truck. And so he jumps out and runs over to the box, and sure enough, there's poor Chunky Chicken, and he's just gargling, and he was in really bad shape. Well, I had a sheet pan in my hands with a cutting board and knives and all sorts of stuff on it because I had made dinner. So I hop out of the truck and I'm holding this, and Cole had already gone over and got the chicken, and you know, you have to do the humane thing and finish so he's not suffering. And I look over, you know, I get out of the truck and I look over, and Cole is just like white as a ghost, and he is holding Chunky's head and his neck in his hand, and I'm like, where's the rest of the chicken? And he's just like looking at my legs. And so I move the tray and look down, and this chicken is just like flapping its wings, and blood is shooting straight out because it doesn't even have a head. Like, you know, people will tell you that chickens chop their head off and they'll run around, but I'd never seen it. I never had that experience or whatever. So I look down, and it is just like he's flapping his wings, and blood is shooting up my legs and all sorts of crazy stuff. And I'm just traumatized because here it is, like, you know, my pet, this animal that I love to death. So that was the end, the demise of Chunky Chicken. Well, after that, Cole was like, you know, we've put so much money and time and things into these chickens, and I get that you didn't want to, you know, kill him, but now he's dead, so let's eat him. And I was like, oh my gosh. Well, I'm like a preparer, so I literally had all of the instructions printed off of Google for how to like clean a chicken, because I, you know, when I got the chickens, I was prepared to do that and didn't realize I'd fall in love with them and that they'd be like little pets. But I had them in like sheet protectors, you know, I'm a nerd. So I go and I get this folding table and put it out in the yard, and I have Chunky Chicken, and I have my sheet protectors of instructions sitting there. And the first thing was like to pluck off all the feathers. And so I am just crying, like bawling my eyes out, pulling all these feathers out. And like, I'm going to write instructions about how to kill a chicken. And I'm going to include like all the weird stuff that nobody else does. Like, when you put pressure on the bird, even though it has no head, air comes out of it and it sounds like it's still clucking, like, because I guess it doesn't, the sound isn't made in its mouth, it's like made in its throat somewhere. So that was really scary. And then my dogs were just sitting there like waiting to try and get a piece of this animal, and I'm just bawling so hard that I can't see, pulling these feathers off. Also a note, do not pull the feathers off. You just turn that skin inside out and cut it off at the legs. Way less mess. I was covered in feathers and there was blood everywhere. Anyway, it was traumatizing. So finally I get, you know, all the feathers off that I could, and then the next step was to get the innards out. And that, my friends, if you're someone who doesn't like touching meat, just imagine touching it when it's warm. So I'm sitting there covered in feathers and trying to pull all the innards out of chunky chicken, and still so sad and everything like that. So that was my first experience with cleaning a bird. I'd never been like pheasant hunting or duck hunting or any of that. A lot of people in this area do, and so it would have been like nothing to them. But for me, it was traumatizing because it was chunky chicken, and two, it was really hard. Like, it was really weird. The noises that they make, they're slimy, and putting your hand inside a warm bird is really weird. So that's kind of funny. Whenever I think of sweet tea, I think of Carolyn, and then I think of chunky chicken and that whole traumatizing story. So I'm gonna drink my not as fabulous as Carolyn's sweet tea and wait for this storm to roll in. And today's supposed to be the last day that we have a ton of wind. So there you go. I'm just gonna hang out here and watch the rain. And now you all know about the demise of chunky chicken. See you next time.